We'll be kicking off in a couple of minutes. Right then, minimise this down out the road. Okay, well, hopefully you're all out there, because the only problem with this YouTube thing is I can't really see you all. So I just have to take it on good faith that you sat there and you can hear me and all that jazz. We've got to the 6th session so far. And tonight we're going to continue with the 3D theme that we started last month, sorry. Only tonight I'm going to show you how to take your stuff from within Quantum GIS into the full-on proper 3D realm and take it out into SketchUp. Now, before we get started, as I've explained before in the past, when SketchUp was first released, it was owned by Google. And Google, of course, wanted to make a big thing about using SketchUp to put models on Google Earth and have the whole world do 3D and all that jazz. And over the years, Google actually did their own system. They figured out how to take the mapping data and all sorts of other stuff like that, and do it all with AI and machine learning and all that type of stuff. So that essentially meant that poor old SketchUp became a little bit redundant, and as a result it fell out of favour. And then Trimble, the geo people who do surveys and equipment and software for the construction industry, said, you know what, Google, if you don't want it anymore, we'll pay you a stupidly large sum of money and we'll take it off your hands. And as part of that purchase, they basically said, oh, and by the way, before you hand it over to us, we insist that you take anything to do with Google out of it, and we insist that you take anything to do with GIS out of it. So the versions that came following that merger all came without the ability to handle shapefiles properly. And it was quite clear over the coming months and years after Trimble bought it that they were no longer interested in keeping the free version out there. All they wanted was this 3D software that was easy to use for non-technical people, easy to train people on, and they could sell for an absolute fortune. Since 2018, Trimble, like many other companies, have now gone to an online 2018, sorry, have now gone to an online software as a service platform, which means that there is no longer a free version. Well, there is, but it's severely limited and it bugs you all the time. And B, you have to pay per month to use it. Yep. The free version, you can do very, very little in it. It bugs you constantly to upgrade it to a paid version. And the sign-up process is probably one of the most invasive that I've seen next to Adobe's. I mean, literally 10 pages worth of life history. Your current email, your previous email, your current address, your previous address, your credit card, your spouse, your kids, just any data that they can get hold of. And this is no surprise because Trimble are an American company, and like many American companies of recent times, they basically have got rules and regulations in place to make sure that they can play fast and loose with consumers' data as long as that data was entered into a form and stored on a server in the US. So there you go. Anyway, why am I waffling on about this? Well, because there was a backlash from the community, Trimble have actually made the old version still available. So one of the first things you're going to need, let's just remove this lovely background, which is one of the pictures that was stored in the Facebook group, and we'll pop across to here. Trimble actually make the older version still available. So if you head yourself across to https://help.sketchup.com/en/downloading-older-versions, then it'll bring you to this page on the main SketchUp website. And if you just scroll down slightly, this is the version that you want right here. SketchUp Make 2017 for 64-bit Windows 10, 8 and 7. Now, it is no longer available for 32-bit, so if you've got a 32-bit operating system, sorry, but you're crap out of luck. XP, anything like that, just not supported anymore. Windows 7 and upwards, 64-bit, you're good to go. Once you have this downloaded, I already have it downloaded, but once you have it downloaded, you will get an executable file. And that executable file, just like any other file, double click on it, run it, install it, and in the usual fashion, once you install it and run it, you should actually end up with something that looks somewhat like this. Now, I actually have SketchUp Pro 2017, and that is because back in the mists of time when I originally started using SketchUp Pro, before the whole Google thing, I actually bought a professional license for it. And I was rather happy to find that when I pulled down the old version of 2017 from SketchUp servers and I put my old Pro code and registration number in, it actually accepted it. So that means that I have a Pro version. But that said, there are plenty of plugins. I mean, you can see that I've got an absolute ton here installed. There are plenty of plugins available to do just about anything you want to do, even with the free version, and most of the plugins are free. Places like Sketchucation and SketchUp and all that lot. So don't be put off by the fact that it is a free version, because the free version is more than capable and more than okay for what we're going to be doing tonight. Yeah. I'll just minimise this down a moment. Now, the other thing you'll need is a way to convert the SketchUp files. And that's where things get a little bit ropey. As I mentioned, current versions of SketchUp no longer have the ability to import and export 2D GIS files. And the older version, certainly 2017 I think was the first Trimble version, 2017 no longer has the ability to talk to Google Maps. It does have a mapping system and you can geolocate your models, but in order to use the geolocation you either need to have a Pro license, or B, you need to have access to a web map that Trimble supports and that Trimble lets you access. And believe you me, Trimble only really let you support one map service, and that's their own map service that, surprise, surprise, they charge an absolute fortune per month for you to use. Now, since what we're doing here is all using free and open source software, we need to be able to do this in a free and easy way. So, myself, being the good guy that I am, I've actually written you all a little piece of software that will do this for you. So if we just pop back across to my browser here. I apologise if anybody's typing anything in at the chat and I'm not responding, by the way. It's because I've got that particular screen minimised at the moment and I can't actually see it, so I'll go and check it in a while. If you do have any questions, just pop them in and I'll get to them shortly, I promise you. So going back on with this, I've actually written you a little piece of software to convert it. Now, I do know that there are some of you among us that, like me, program in .NET and possibly a few other strange languages. So for those of you who want to build your own copy and who would like to have the source code to see how I've done it, you can find it right here on my GitHub page. And that's simply just github.com/shorty git GIS SketchUp converter. There's a little readme file there, all the source codes in there. Just whack it into Visual Studio. It was created with Visual Studio 2019 Community Edition, so you don't even need to pay for the software development and the compiler and that to use it and have a look at it. And for those of you who do not want or are not even the slightest bit interested in looking at the source code and building your own copy, if you head across to files.digital-solutions.me.uk/concert history/mapping session 6, you will find a zip file. And in this zip file, you will find the exe file that I'm going to demonstrate using tonight, along with all the bits and pieces of DLLs that it needs. All you need to do is drag that into a folder, open the zip file, copy all the files out of the zip file, and click on the exe. And then everything will work the way that I'm about to show you just in a moment. Once you have this downloaded, once you have SketchUp, and assuming you already have your QGIS and your maps and things installed ready to use, then you basically have everything that you need for us to continue doing what we're going to be doing tonight. Right. Let's just have a look and see if any of you have bent my ear at all. Well, no, nobody's bent my ear, but hi Ian, hi Dave Weston. Hopefully you're doing okay. Right then. Now, I'm not going to bore you all too much with the standard GIS stuff because we've covered that in depth. So we're just going to simply pick a particular shape. Any shape will do. How about the Berry Edge Training Workshops? It's a lovely square rectangle. It's easy to work with, and it's already geo-referenced. So basically what we need to do here is we need our select tool, and then once we have our select tool, we select one and only one shape to work with. Let me just change my camera there so you can see what I'm doing. That's better. So we select one and only one shape to work with. Yeah, and that's not because of any problems with SketchUp or with any problems with QGIS. It's because the conversion program that I've written is only able to convert one shape at a time. I haven't spent an awful lot of time on it. I may improve it. Or those others in our group who have programming skills may wish to fork and improve the sources. Feel free to do so. But for now it will only convert one shape at a time. Once you've selected the one piece of 2D GIS geometry that you want to work with, you right click on the layer that it belongs to you go to export and you save selected features, not all features, selected features. Now, before you save selected features, make sure you are on our Magic EPSG code 27700, because again, the little application that I've wrote will only convert stuff that is in format 27700. Now, let me just check my test folder. Let's just get rid of these old files first, because we don't need them. So we have a little test folder here. I'll just resize that a bit just to fit on the screen. There we go. And this will be where we'll save all our files at. So right click, export, selected feature only. Now, unlike what we normally do, which is put it out as a KML for Google Earth, this time we have to save it and as an Esri shapefile. And this time we have to make sure we save it with EPSG 22700. So we'll just select our test folder. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? There it is. And we'll go Berry Edge training. Save only the selected features. We don't want anything else turning on, just leave everything else at the defaults. Don't add it to your map because we already have it in our map. You don't need any custom options. You don't need any geometry or anything, any styles or anything turning on. And once we've done that, we'll just OK that. We'll get our notification telling us that it's saved. Now, if we look in our little folder, our test folder, you'll see that we now have this .shp file. We have a number of others that support that shp file as well, but the shp file is the important one. Now, at this point, you'll need the application that you downloaded, the little conversion application. I already have a copy here somewhere ready to go, so there it is. Let's just get into the right folder and run new. Once you run it, you will see this window here. It's dead simple, nothing to it. Tells you straight on the window everything that you need to do. So what we do from our test folder here is we drag our shape file, and you'll see that'll change to a normal copy cursor. Let go of it and wait a couple of seconds. Now, yes, there is no feedback to tell you what it's doing. I probably will have to do that at some point, but if you just wait a few seconds, you'll see we now have this new file here, berryedgetraining.skp, and that is our SketchUp model. If I now just grab a copy of the folder name for that and minimize all those down out of the way and bring SketchUp back to the front, I should now be able to open, and there we go, berryedgetraining.skp. If I open that file, give it a moment, and yep, I don't know why it binged at me, but it did. There you go. You'll see that we get this rather zoomed in view. Yeah, and that's just a small consequence of how I encode the file. There's not much I can do about that. But if we pull out and then select our pan tool here, our hand, you'll see that we have a rectangle that's exactly the same shape and size as our berry edge thing from within Quantum GIS. Now, I know it doesn't look much right at the moment, but this is actually a 3D plane. It's not just a simple 2G geometry like it was before. It is an actual 3D plane. And if I press and hold my middle mouse button and move, you'll see that we can now move it around. Look at it from underneath, look at it from above, all sorts of different angles. Yeah. But more importantly, this is actually geo-referenced. If I go into the file info section, is it in, no, sorry, it's not in file, it's in window model info, you should actually see that this model is accurately geolocated, and it has a latitude and a longitude, which is a corner 54 minus 1 west. We know that's within concert. Yeah. What that latitude longitude refers to is this origin point here. Yeah. So that point there is would be exactly the same point as it is in WGS 84 on Google Earth. And if you don't believe me, what we'll do is we'll just go and do a simple push-pull extrude. We'll grab the top of it and we'll just bring it up by, I don't know, half an inch, couple of foot, something like that. We'll say 5. What's that? 5 something I can't see because I'm using quite a small screen resolution and my measurements over this side of the screen somewhere. So we're just going to have to hope that that is 5 foot, which is what I told it. Now if we go to File and Export and Export 3D Model, make sure that we have Google Earth file.kmz selected, make sure we're in our test folder and export that. What we should now find once it finishes exporting is that we do indeed now have this KMZ file here. And if I click on that KMZ file, you'll see there goes Google Earth doing its thing, and hey presto, there's our rectangle representing the Berry Edge training workshops. And those of us who know the area will know that this is Berry Edge Road right here, and that is the location that the workshops were in originally. So what we have now is an actually properly geolocated object that is the same size as the Berry Edge workshops, or at least I think it's the same size as the Berry Edge workshops. Might be out by a couple of metres here and there, but it is largely the same size that we can now do some modelling on. And for those who asked about doing pointy roofs last month, yes, you can, because this is a proper 3D modelling package now. What we're doing here by importing these into SketchUp, we're no longer just relying on the silly little vertical blocks that QGIS has in, and the simple sort of height off the ground and all that. We are actually doing proper 3D modelling here. So we'll just remove that from there for the time being. We'll minimise that back down, and we'll start doing some interesting stuff with this. Now the problem I have here, as I said, is I can't see my measurements. There we go. So that distance was 5 foot. If you're more used to working in meters, by the way, you can go to Window Model Info, Units, and you can actually change the format from architectural to decimal, and then change that decimal to meters. Yeah. So now you're actually in meter format there. Yeah. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the Berry Edge workshops was 1 story plus about a quarter of a story off the floor, and about half a story with a pitched roof from the photographs that I remember. A single story room, an average size, is generally round about 4.5 to 5 meters. So in this case, we're going to go a little bit on the high side, and we're going to say 5 meters. So the first thing we need to do is know how big this bit that we pulled up was already. We may actually be able to Control Z and undo it. Let's have a look. Oh, we can. There we go. That makes that much simpler. So the first thing we need is to bring this building up to about 5 meters in height. So if we click, this is our push-pull tool here. This is otherwise known as extrude, by the way, for those who are wondering which one I'm using. When you hover over and a thing goes dotty colour like that, that means that your auto select's in place. So if I click on that now and just let go of the button and the mouse, if I now move my mouse up, that'll start pulling up and down. Yep, and you can see in my distance field the numbers going up and down. But you don't have to do this with your mouse and judge it by eye. Yeah, because as I've said, you're using a proper 3D package now. If you've got your mouse selected like that and you're not pressing any of the buttons on the mouse, you can simply just type in on your keyboard 5.0m and then press return, and it will lock it at 5 meters. So that is now 5 meters high. Yeah, obviously it's scaled to fit on the computer screen, but the actual building footprint is 5 meters high. If you're working to the 5 meter rule, which is generally what I do, then 10 meters is 2 stories, 15 meters is 3 stories, 20 meters is 4 stories, and so on. That kind of thing. Now, if memory serves me right, I think there were 3 pitched roofs on this. So what we're going to do, we're going to use these icons here, change our view, and we're going to look at our object from the top. Yeah? And we're going to use the pencil to divide this up. Now when you're moving around your geometry, you see this little coloured dot, which is currently purple. That's telling me that I am on the face. Yeah? In 3D software, faces and edges are separate things. So that's a face, that's an edge. And you can see there it changed to a red square. So it tells me that I'm on the edge, or the line round the edge, and there I'm actually on the face itself. On the edge, you also get different icons for different parts of the edge, depending on whether you're in line with things or anything like that. So if I move this down the edge, at some point I will hit the midpoint, and it will turn into a blue circle. There we go. And if you have your snapping tools on, the snapping tools in SketchUp work exactly the same way as the snapping tools in things like QGIS. You will see that that'll actually jump. So as I move closer to it, there you go. Even though the pencil's not exactly on the midpoint, it's snapped to the midpoint because it's saying, look, you know, you've been very close and very slow and deliberate. This is probably what you want. If we click once and then move down across the shape, you'll see that we'll get a green line. Yeah. Now, if you notice, if you look to the left, look at the axes, the ones that are pointed out before that tell you where the latitude and the longitude of the georeference and of your model is. You will see that down the left, running from top to bottom, is a green line. If the line you are drawing turns green, it means that it is perfectly in line with that green line. Yeah? Perfectly perpendicular. If I was to do this, you'll see it'll go red. And when it goes red, it means it's perfectly perpendicular to this one here. We're not going to do the blue one because we're looking from above, but if we were looking from the front, the back, the left or the right, and we moved the pencil in an up direction, then it would go blue to show that it was lined up with that blue axis there. The other colour you'll get will be a pink colour, and that tells you that you're perpendicular to either that edge or to another edge that you're interested in. Yep. With SketchUp, if you move to another face, so let's say for example we want to draw parallel to this face here. If you move to another face, then start moving slowly back away from that face, like if you latch on with a midpoint or a square or something like that and start moving back from that face, you'll see that it will do an automatic construction line for you. And as I move back, there you go, it will actually turn pink to show me when I'm perfectly lined up with that. And this is an important thing to remember, because when you're doing this kind of modelling, your lines have to be perpendicular and they have to be straight. If they're not, you will get all sorts of odd bits of geometry all over the place, and trying to change some of them and sitting there spending hours deleting tiny little triangles and zooming right in can be a bit soul destroying, believe me. So try and get them as accurately as possible. When I was on about getting things perpendicular and in straight lines and at 90-degree angles when drawing your geometry in QGIS and tracing around the maps, this is the exact reason why I was pushing so hard to make that a thing that you should remember. Because by getting accurately square, good geometry on your maps, it then makes your job of turning it into a model that much easier. Now if we continue to keep that in pink and move down towards the other side, you will see that it tells me I'm coming in perpendicular to that edge as well. And what I should actually get as well at some point here, I should get a blue. Sometimes it gets a bit crowded and a bit confusing, so it doesn't sometimes show the different coloured icons and things like that. But the fact that that line is pink tells me that it's perpendicular, so I'm just going to click and finish it. Now what we've actually done there is we've subdivided this. Yeah. If I select my select tool now and just go back into one of the 3D modes and click, you'll see that I select that or I select that. So what I actually have here now is two separate pieces of geometry. Yeah, these are two separate faces, not one face with a line drawn in the middle, but two separate faces. And that means that if I wanted to, say, extrude this side to be a bit higher, I can do that. Yep. Because it's separate geometry. And again, keeping your geometry square makes this easier. It makes this happen better. So, continuing with our centre line, let's do some more centre lines down here. And, oh, did I get that right? I'm not entirely sure if I got that right. So we'll go back that way. There we go. And then we'll put another one in here. Right? And that gives us 4 divisions. This is now 4 separate faces. You'll see why I'm doing this in just a moment. And then we're going to do one last set of lines. Again, making sure that we get these parallel. Takes a bit of practice and a bit of patience to get this right, so don't worry if you don't get it straight away. You do need to be fairly dexterous with your mouse, and as I've said in the GIS sessions with Quantum GIS, if you've got a trackball, it really helps. I'm just using a normal mouse for tonight's session, but normally if I was doing work this closely and trying to be this accurate, I would normally be using the trackball for this, just so that I can get the accuracy that I need. Now, you'll see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 segments. Yeah, Or, if you want to count it another way, we have 4 segments of 2 halves each. What we can do now is we can use our move tool and we can get hold of individual lines. If we get hold of this line and its midpoint and click it, we can move that around now. Yep. But what we're actually interested in doing is moving it up to form a roof like that. But we don't want to have a problem that we've maybe moved it along the red axis or anything like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to lock the axis. If I press my up arrow, you'll see it says on blue axis. And the reason it says it's on blue axis is because no matter how much I move my mouse now, the only way that geometry will actually move with the move tool is up and down along this blue axis here. If you use the left, it allows you to move on the red axis, and if you use the right, it allows you to move on the green axis. Now, that I think is slightly out of alignment. You can see because the line's a little bit thicker at that end than it is at that end. So we'll go and we'll hit this one instead. Press our up on blue axis. That's slightly out as well. Never mind, we can fix that later. So, because we're on the blue axis, you'll see that our distance there is also changing. And if we type a figure in there now, it will set that as the height of our move. A minus number will set it below, and positive number will set it above. Yep. So half a story, 2.5 meters, so we'll say 2.5 m, hit return, and there you go. You'll see that it's set it. Yep. And you can see straight away there that we actually have a nice pitched roof on that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fill a line in here as well, just so that that's got two separate faces there for SketchUp to work with. Sometimes when you're modelling, you will have to put extra lines in to divide parts of your model up. You can always remove them later if you need to, but it does occasionally help if you divide bits up, just so that it's easier for the modeler to work out where it needs to break things and where it needs to put points. If you need to remove lines and that later on, you simply use the eraser and do that. Now, what you might find, as you can see here, that SketchUp has put this line in automatically for us. And it's done that because you may not be able to see it with your naked eye, but these two corners here, this one and this one, are not 100% 90 degrees square. Sometimes, if you're lucky and you put other subdivisions in, like we have down here, you can sometimes remove these lines. Unfortunately, that's not the case here. As you'll see, I've removed that line and it's actually removed both of the faces as well. So we can actually see inside of the model. The other thing you'll also see as well, that this outside face is the wrong way round. Purple is the reverse side of a face, cream is the front side of a face. So, one thing we need to do before we put that back in is we just need to right click on that and reverse faces. And then to put that piece of roof back in, we just need to take our pencil and connect those 2 points back up. Now, if SketchUp can fill a hole in without requiring any weird mucking around and odd shaped triangles and tiny little fiddly work, it will do that. Yeah, you can see there that it's filled those two holes in for me automatically. Yeah, if it can't, then you will either end up just with the line that you've drawn and still be able to see behind it, or you will just not have anything happen at all. Now, there's not really anything I can teach you to avoid that happening other than to keep your corners and your edges and your buildings as square and as straight as possible, you know. But we're only human. It's not at all possible for us to be absolutely 100% spot on all of the time. So occasionally you do have to make some sacrifices. The reason you don't want lines like this across individual faces is when you come to paint them. When I come to paint this with a roof texture, then because those are two separate faces, there will be a line down the middle where the tiling doesn't entirely meet fully. And it might look a bit odd, it might not look a bit odd, but it may, you know. So if you can remove lines, by all means do so. If you can't, don't worry too much about it. Right, so let's carry on. And we'll do these other ones. So we'll put our tool back into move tool mode. We will click on that line. Oh, hang on. What have we got there? Hit escape. If you go to move something and the thing that you hoped to select didn't move or something else moved, hit escape, and if you did make any modifications, Control Z will undo them. Yeah, so escape, Control Z are always your emergency get out of jail free card. If you're not sure if anything is selected or not, because you can't see it, but you're not able to select the thing that you want, select your select arrow and just click on any empty white space. Right, let's try that again. Go back to our move tool and you'll see that our auto select is working again now. So basically we had something round here that we couldn't see in our current camera view selected. So we move over there, we click, we press our up arrow, and then we do that. And we want that at 2.5 meters to match the other one, so we type in 2.5 m, hit return, and job's a good one. Move on to the next line. Click up arrow on the keyboard, move just so it goes into move mode, 2.5 meters, hit return, boom. And one last time, click up arrow on the keyboard, move 2.5 meters, boom. Now you'll see we have another reversed face there, so let's just sort of pan around a little bit and use our select. We'll reverse that face. Let's have a look round, let's see what we've got on the other side. Yeah, let's just make it easier for the modeler. We'll continue that all the way across there, and that side's looking good. Obviously the model or the square base of the model is actually out by more than just a little bit, because you can see the modeler's SketchUp has realised that it's had to double triangle all of those roof segments. We may be able to fix that later, we may be able to do something about it. I'm not going to try doing anything about it just yet though. So we now have a building there that's 5 meters high and has some 2.5 meter pitches on. Let's have a look and see what that looks like. So we'll go back to file, we'll export, we'll go 3D model, and we'll just overwrite our original one. There we go. And then we'll minimize that back down, we'll go in here, we'll click on that, and there we go. We'll bring it back into into Google Earth, and you can see again it's actually on the right location again as it was before, but now it looks more like a building. It looks a little bit more like the set of huts that were there originally. Quite cool in fact. Now what you can also do, and I quite like doing this sometimes, is you can drag your street view and use Google's Street View system to go down onto a model and position it so that you're looking at your model, and then toggle between street view and ground view mode. So if I go into ground view mode, there you go, there's my Berry Edge Training Workshops, and actually if I use my arrows to navigate, I can walk right up to the building and I can walk around it and things like that, and you can see that we have largely got the size proportions pretty close there using that 5 metre rule. You can also walk through the buildings because as far as Google's concerned, these are just 3D objects. There's no collision detection or anything, and you can see the actual Google map showing through on the floor, which shows that this thing is sat right on the ground. But that was just a nice happy little sort of side view thing. What I was actually showing you, or going to show you, is this. If you line your view up and then toggle between ground view and street view, you get a slight pause while Google builds and loads the geometry. So what you get is you get a brief split second where you can see what the modern day environment looks like with your building or part of your building around it. It does depend a lot on where the building sits or how it sits or anything like that, you know, but it's all good anyway. So we'll exit that and we'll come back out. We'll remove that again for the time being, and we'll return back to SketchUp. So now we have a building to work with. Let's paint it a little bit. Now normally what you would do if you have, and this is at the point we're at, by the way, this is one of the reasons why I keep saying to people in the group in the various posts that I answer, if you have any really good front-on photography of a building that shows its decor, its colour, what it was made of, how it was constructed, where the windows are, that kind of thing, what I can actually do is I can plaster this alongside here. So if you had a photograph, say for example, that covered this half of the building here, I can draw a line down there and then I can cut out from the photograph this half of the wall and actually just make it so it is that full rectangle there. And then with a little bit of work and a little bit of detail, I can take a photograph, put it on there, photograph, put it on there, photographs, put them on here, and I can line them all up so that when it's loaded into Google Earth, it actually has the photo applied to it, a little bit like wallpaper and well, reverse wallpaper in fact. Imagine wallpapering a room but inside out. It's a little bit like that. And if you line it up properly, you can make the building look like it used to in the photographs. Now, I don't have any photographs prepared here, so I'm just going to use the built-in sort of textures and wallpapers that SketchUp comes with. So what have we got for our palette here? Landscaping, fencing, brick cladding and siding, rusty metal. There we go. Cladding, siding, white. That was like a wood cladding, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe these huts were built with a blue wood cladding. I'm sure somebody will correct me in the Facebook group on this if I've got it wrong, but we'll use that as our paint and we'll just go around the model putting these on like so. Yep, that looks alright for now. If you're wondering, yes, you can stick doors on this way, or if you've put in sufficient hours of practice, you can actually build the doors in 3D. So you can build like a wooden frame, you can build the door, you can put a window in the door, that kind of thing. All of that takes an incredibly long time and far too long for tonight's session. We've only got about 12 minutes left. So obviously I'm not going to go to that length of detail tonight, but I will show you before I sign off one of the other models that I've already worked on or have been working on, and you'll see exactly what I mean because I've done the doors on that in the same way. Let's find a roof for this. What's that? We'll just go with that, I think. So you can see there exactly what I was on about with the tiles. That's actually lined up pretty well. If we zoom in, that's not too much of a problem, but sometimes it actually doesn't. So I'm not too bummed with that. That's actually pretty good. So I'll just line them back up. Now you might have noticed, looking at this, that well, that's actually quite small. And actually I think that's brick, isn't it? Yes, it is brick. So that probably wasn't what I wanted. Tell you what else have we got? We do have some roof tiles somewhere. Is it in there? No, it's not in there. It's one of those things where when I see it, I will... What's that? That's concrete paving. Oh, there we go. Right under my nose, roofing. That's the one that I thought I was picking, right there. So let's just go and change all them very quickly. Because as I say, we are starting to run out of time, so we just need to do this. Now, as I was saying, if you zoom in, sometimes this might look a little bit small. It might not be. I mean, that might be okay for the scale of the building. But if you actually need to change it, what you need to do is change your material selection to in model. And there you'll find the roofing shingles. Yeah, the roofing shingles asphalt. So that's the actual one that we have selected. And if you double click on that, it'll take you to this editing thing here, and this allows you to make some small changes. For example, if you wanted to give it a colour tint, you can actually change the colour tint on it a little bit. There you go. So it's now blue tiles. That was probably actually not what I wanted to do. What I probably wanted to do was change that on the wood. So we'll put that back to that sort of light browny colour there. The other thing we might want to do is actually change the scale of the tiles. So if we change the tiles to something like 2 meters, there you go. You can see they look more like I would expect for the scale of the building. Yep. See, that looks a bit better. Now if we go to our cladding siding white, double click on it. This was the one that I should have changed to a bluey colour, because if I remember, that was like a blue cladding, unless I'm rather mistaken. Again, feel free to correct me in the actual group. And I'm not entirely sure what those eaves were in, so we'll just go and... What have we got here? There? No, there's nothing really there. We'll go back and we'll put this kind of cladding on, I think, just to give it a little bit of difference. I'm not going to bother adjusting that cladding or colouring it or anything like that, or scaling it. This is just for our demonstration. But you can see we've, with a little bit of care and some correct photographs and some nice detail work, you can see just what a really, really good job we could make of that if we wanted to. So save that, and then we'll export that back out as a 3D model, making sure that we save it as a KMZ. We'll overwrite our existing file, Then we'll go back to our test folder. We'll click on that to bring it back into Google Earth, and hey presto, there we go. And there is our coloured and painted Berry Edge training workshops. Looking rather snazzy. As we zoom in, you can see that that's got the blue wood cladding on, and it's got our tiled roof. There you go. Now, just to give you a little bit of a demonstration of what you can do with the bit of work, here somewhere I have my ConcertWorks model already done. So I'm just going to click on my map and press R to reset it and zoom out just so that I can see where I am and see the rest of the Steelworks site. If we tick that, there's number 2 plant, or the billet mill as I now know. Now you can see I have already started styling and painting that. I haven't got very far yet. Oh, hang on. That's not right. Something missing off there. I wonder what the problem there is then. I definitely have put some reverse wallpaper on those parts. So I'm not entirely sure why that's missing. I will have to check that out. But you'll see on the end here as well. Oh. See on the end here, I've also done a partially open steel door. And if I go down onto ground level and walk around just as I was before, I can now get an idea of the size of the building, and I can even sort of walk around it. Okay, the walking speed's a bit unrealistic, but Google Earth's not really designed for this, and I can even walk into the interior of the building. Again, if you were trying to demonstrate to somebody just how monumentally huge this place used to be, this is actually a really good way of doing it. You know? I'm actually holding my finger on the up arrow here, and this is moving at a fast speed. You know? If we turn around, we'll walk back out of that door there and across the there you go. So let's exit the ground level view. Press R to reset our camera. You can see exactly where on the now modern housing estates this used to lie. You can see at the side there, this bit here is still just the 2D plate down the side. I believe that was the Collado plant or something like that. The Sinter and stuff, from what I've been told in the group. This I've still yet to do. This is work in progress. Let's reset the camera again. And if I go down and I start sort of ticking the other things on, like the R&D building for example, this sits right where my house is. In fact, that wall of the R&D building, I believe it was the R&D building, again, let me know in the group if I'm wrong, but that wall of the R&D building actually more or less coincides with that same wall on my house, which is about 4 meters in front of where I'm sitting. If I drop down onto the ground for here, and then put it into that mode, if you remember what I was saying before when I was doing the Berry Edge workshops about doing doors and windows, you can see here that I've actually done the doors properly here. So as I walk in, okay, my head height is a little high, but again, that's a Google Earth thing. There's not really much I can do about that. You can see that I've got a proper doorway which I've modelled in 3D with glass in it. So I've painted it with a glass texture. And I could, if I wanted to, if I had the internal building plans, I could divide this all up with walls and staircases and offices and desks and benches and things like that. So if you have plans of the internals of these buildings, please by all means let's have them. Let's put them all together. Let's start diagnosing them and looking at the measurements on them and actually modelling these things really, really close. You know, if I walk through there, you can see I'm through into the other building. So we can actually walk through the internal spaces again on these. Because it's Google Earth, actually, you don't have to use the door. There we go. Straight out through a wall. But that kind of defeats the object, you know. Of course, again, R to reset. Let's pull it back out. The one piece I've done that is finished is the gatehouse. You've seen the pictures of it on the group. And that should be... Where is that? There it is. Again, that's missing its textures and its woods. I'll have to have a look at that because obviously Google Earth's not happy about something with that. So I'm going to have a look and see why. But this has actually got, if you've seen the photographs in the group, this has got brick on there and wood cladding here and a tarmac roof and white wood and proper glass and that around it. And then just to finish off, even though they may be unfinished, we'll turn on all the other buildings that I've added. Many of which are nowhere near complete yet, but we'll turn them on anyway. And if I pull it down into 3D mode, there you go. You can get a good idea of where we're going with this. And because we have accurate maps for this, and because we can do the 2D outlines for this easily using a GIS package, we can get this really, really right. We can, if we get together as a team and we actually sit and do this properly, we can build something that not even some of the biggest museums and tourist attractions in the UK have. Yeah? And then we can go on to teach other groups to do it. So just have a little think about that for a future. What we're doing here is something that no other local history group, that I'm aware of at least in the UK, is doing or has even attempted to do. And only a handful of really, really top tier geographic people like the Ordnance Survey and the people that work with them have even attempted to do something like this on a historic scale. Even the likes of Google and Bing with their 3D maps on Google Earth do this by analysing this aerial photography and saying to a machine learning or artificial intelligence function, that rectangle there's a house, that rectangle there's a house, that's a bunch of trees. Now extend it a little bit and plaster the photograph around it. And they get reasonably good results, but they're not perfect results. You know, we are actually bringing history back to life by doing this. And you'll have to excuse me if I sound really passionate about this project, but I am. And, well, I guess you can see why. I'm going to shut up now anyway. Hopefully you enjoyed tonight's session. Let's finish off by bringing up another photograph. How about the org gantry, folks? That's always a good one. There we go. We'll put that in as my background, and then we'll just change my camera angle again. There we go. And let's go to the YouTube page. Anybody there interested? Anybody there want to ask anything? Anybody want to say anything? Put your hand up and do so now, because I'm reading the YouTube page. And getting a little bit disorientated because I'm now watching the preview on YouTube, which is 5 seconds behind what I'm actually saying and what I'm actually doing. Yikes. Ian? Dave? Anyone? If it looks like I'm looking round something and disappearing off the edge of my camera, by the way, it's because I am. The ring light that's holding my camera's right in front of my monitor, so I'm having to look round it to see anything. It is a lot of stuff to take in, Ian, and it's like everything that we've done here. It's like everything that we've done in all of these sessions so far. Practice, 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 practice. You guys have more or less caught up with everything that I can show you virtually. You know? Yeah, I kind of figured it was, Dave, but I'm being polite. If that's what it says on my screen, that's what I'm going to say it as. But no, sorry, what was I saying? Yeah, it's practice, 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 practice. You guys have more or less caught up with everything that I can show you in these virtual sessions now. I can always go back and redo other bits and pieces, and we can do some little tips and tricks. But the core of how I've been building these models, from the initial 2D drawing on the map right through to producing the models, you now have over the 6 sessions that we've done so far. You know? So go out there, download this software, grab the little program that I've made available for you to convert your data, and, you know, have fun. Practice, play with it. You know? You don't get good at this stuff unless you practice. Yep. And on that note, if we're all good and there is no questions, then I'm going to end the stream. I'm glad you all enjoyed it. I'll be hovering around in the Facebook group in, say, 5 or 10 minutes, just checking my messages and having a read through stuff and what have you. So feel free to ping me on Messenger and stuff like that. I'm going to shut all this down. I'm going to go and get myself a brew, and then I'll come back and I'll log into Facebook. Have fun.